Okay.
All right, so we are live at the Real Estate Workout Recap. We got Lee Jennings up in Seattle, Rick Janson, your host from Denver, Colorado. And we host a show on Clubhouse, or a room on Clubhouse within the Libertas coaching group called the Real Estate Workout, where you can work your mind and body at the same time. We encourage people to hop on a Peloton or an elliptical, go for a walk, do anything so that you're moving while you're learning about the real estate market. We're today, man, learning from David Torgerson up in Helena, Montana, about the housing shortage up there. Baristas living 8 people in a 2-bedroom place. Denver's experiencing a housing crunch. Lee, you're experiencing a housing crunch in Seattle. Jonah Weber's experiencing housing crunch in her market. What are some of your takeaways from today's show?
So yeah, I mean, it's really interesting for me, kind of the juxtaposition between kind of the rural towns or mountain towns like Helena or other places that I used to live, and then coming to a place like Seattle or even Denver. King County, which is my county here, we had 12% appreciation last month. So average price of a single family home in King County is now $825, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
And it's contributing to, we just have a huge housing shortage, and we have a big, a homelessness problem. And we have an issue of people, who even do own, not being able to move up because they would sell at like 400 or 500 and have to buy it at, 800 or more. So it's a crazy.
You mentioned a huge tech presence up in Seattle too, right? Google's up there, Facebook is up there. Just, I'm not going to say displacing, but those inflated salaries are creating inflated home prices.
Oh, completely. I mean, there's Microsoft obviously has a massive presence here. The job market here is probably one of the best in the country, I think. But it's just, I mean, there's a lot of people with super high incomes, and it's just, it's contributing to this overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would having trouble finding my words here, but like driving around, the number of spec homes I see, in 2006, 2007, they were spec homes at $1.5 million. Now they're spec homes at 2.5, 3 million. Where do you see people getting the money to buy those homes up in Seattle? Is it from the tech jobs, or is it from people just like cashing out of their California residence, moving up to Seattle? Are they coming out of Hong Kong, or where are they coming from?
It's both of those. I mean, it's California. What I'm seeing is a lot of people in California who are selling and then taking their cash and like doing a 1031 exchange into a property here. Here in Seattle, that's huge. And then it's people with really, really high incomes here in Seattle who just they have the means to put this together. And most properties in Seattle that are selling for like over $1.5 million or 2 million, those people are putting over 50% down. So they're just essentially moving cash around. The actual lending, around it is really not as big of a factor.
That is something we should probably take a look at, isn't it? Like if I was to do a local market report in Denver, looking at what's happened to loan sizes and number of cash buyers. I know the number of cash buyers is up significantly. Mm-hmm. So they're obviously either moving money out of the stock market and saying, hey, we rode that up as far as possible. Now let's park it someplace that's still appreciating. Or they're rolling out of a house, like they're rolling out of a $3 million house in California into a $2 million house in Denver. I'm not going to blame it all on California, but their taxes are driving a lot of people out of the state. Elon Musk, I wanted him as a client, but he moved to Texas.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. I had a listing recently that was a duplex here in Seattle. Anything multi-unit in Seattle, or actually it was a triplex, but anything multi-unit here is super hot. And I only had this triplex on. It was probably on the market for 5 or 6 days, and I had literally probably 25 or 30 buyers contact me from California who were all looking to do a 1031 exchange, which was kind of mind blowing. Only because this property wasn't even in the core of Seattle; it was an outlying area. It was near the naval base in Bremerton.
That's solid.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, it was like, it just showed me the level, like the type of investor that is looking here now and where they're looking to deploy capital. I mean, I had a hunch that might have been the case, but this just confirmed it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and talking to Dave up in Helena, and he's talking about like, there's just such a housing crunch, shortage. And cities are right now like trying to figure it out, and they can't figure it out, nor do they necessarily have the expertise to figure it out.
Right.
That's not what they got hired to do, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's zoning people and planning people, but there's such demand right now. And then you've got water, right? Colorado, water is a big deal. So if you, even if you want to build a whole new subdivision, where's the water going to come from?
Right.
And you can only zero escape so far, but maybe there should be talks about recycling gray water on site if you're putting in a new subdivision or something, right? Like, at least recycle it for the purpose of watering a lawn, or maybe all the lawns need to be artificial turf, save a whole ton of water, right? I don't know what the solutions are there.
That's kind of the subtle, that's sort of a subtle thing that's happening in Seattle right now. Is I think that people are, I mean, financial things are moving people here, but there's also just this subtle thing of like, we don't have forest fires. We don't have like natural disasters. We haven't really dealt with that. We have, it's an amazing surrounding environment here. Like you have ocean, you have mountains, you have all these things. So it's like, I think we've largely kind of avoided some of those issues. And it's like, people are I think are starting to take notice of that.
Yeah. Well, and burns were a big thing last year. Hopefully we're not going to have them this year, but it was all over the national forests in Colorado, but all over, like right next to houses in California, right? I mean, they were just getting burned out by the hundreds.
Right.
Last year was scary. It really was.
It was. Yeah.
You didn't have any of that up in Washington.
We did. I mean, but it was mostly confined to like the eastern side of the state. I know BC has problems with it as well, but like right here in Seattle, we're sort of insulated because we do, obviously. I mean, that's all you hear about is, oh, it rains so much in Seattle. I guess there are benefits to that,
There's that, right?
And we also had the 11th. We had the snowiest year here in 11 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the rivers are all going to be full. I mean, the biggest, we've been having avalanche, issues and stuff, but all the rivers will be full. Everything will be wet all summer. In fact, people will be skiing into July.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think A Basin's planning to be open up until way into June. And I mean, Copper Mountain, it's April 9th, Copper Mountain's still open.
Right.
So for anybody watching this, it's kind of funny. Lee used to live in Denver, and I used to live in Seattle, and now I live in Denver, and he lives in Seattle. So we know each other pretty well.
We traded places. I always wondered if I would come back to Seattle. It's kind of still shocking to me that I did, but it's amazing here. So
yeah.
And I miss Colorado.
The fact that you told me about Jackson Hole and the Realtor Association, tell me that again, because that was something I want to pull out of the recap here.
Yeah, so Jackson Hole, Wyoming has 10,000 residents about. That's in the winter, like the full-time year-round people. And of those, I believe between 600 and 700 of them are real estate agents. And it's about, if you want to open an office in Jackson and join the Teton County Board of Realtors, the annual dues to join is about $4,700. And it was crazy. I remember I owned a property management company there for a time, and we had to join the board, and I was like, oh yeah, $400, no big deal. Yeah, wrong. No, try 10 times that.
Yeah. Even in Denver, I think it's about $600 a year.
Yeah. That's what I was picturing. And boy, was I wrong.
4,700. That is just purely, I think that's just purely barrier to entry.
And then if you're an individual agent who hangs your license under another brokerage, like let's say you just roll into town and you sign up at Sotheby's or Christie's or whatever it is.
EXP.
Or EXP. Your annual dues are like I want to say it's like $2,400 a year. So, I mean, it's next level. Real estate in Jackson Hole is like, it's really something to behold. I've never really experienced anything like it. I would imagine maybe places like Vail or Aspen or Whistler are probably similar to that, but I mean, it's just
Yeah, Vail, not as much. I mean, Vail is very wicked expensive, right?
Yeah.
Right next to Vail, as you know, is Beaver Creek. It's about 15 minutes down the road.
Right.
Beaver Creek has a ton of $3 million second residences, right?
Yeah.
Third residence, fourth residence, people who show up for like 3 weeks a year.
Right.
And then have a house sitter there the rest of the year. And then Aspen, though, wow. The average price point in Aspen is just insane.
The average price point of I remember reading the average price point of a home in Aspen passed $1 million like in I want to say it was like in the mid 80s or something, or
Yeah.
or maybe 1990, something like that, a long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah. And I remember that, reading that too, in like the 90s or something. It was like 1.5 million, and we're like, average?
Yeah.
And it's just gone up from there, right?
Right.
And so back in, this will tickle you a little bit. Back in, I think it was 95. No, not 95. Back in, had to be 2001, 2002, because I was an attorney at the time. And I was unemployed in Denver because there was a recession. I kept getting bounced around out of firms. And I drove up to Aspen, and I just door knocked on law firms with a resume. I'm like, there were a handful of firms. So I just knocked on the door. I'm like, hey, here's my resume. I'm thinking about moving up. Can you use a realtor? They're like, sure. So one of them said, yeah, but you have to find housing first, or we can't offer you a job.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I started shopping around for housing, and I drove about 40 minutes down the road to Carbondale, aka Carbondale.
Right.
And found a little townhouse there I really should have picked up for $150K. It's 3 bedrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about it, right? Like,
yeah.
it breaks my heart. That'd be worth like $850 right now.
Oh yeah.
So I could afford it. If I took on 2 roommates, I could afford it, but I'd be commuting 35, 40 minutes to work.
Yep. Which 95% of the people there do.
And I was kind of like, well, this sort of defeats the purpose of living close to a ski resort.
Right.
And now I lost all my social network and everything else. So I went back to the law firm. I'm like, how do people afford to live up here? And they said, oh, most of them sell their car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Then you can't go ski, can't go bike.
Oh yeah. That's the whole thing. It's that's sort of the paradox of living in one of those places. I mean, I moved to Seattle from Jackson, Wyoming. I was there for 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that nobody tells you when you roll into town and you're sort of living the life. And, it's not easy. It's a challenging place to live in a lot of different ways, some of which are kind of more subtle.
I guess the best job to get in a place like Aspen would be a house sitter, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you're an attorney making $60K a year, which was like a joke for that area, right?
Right.
And so you're living in one of the most expensive places in the country, getting paid lower mid-tier city wages for an attorney. Mm-hmm. But you have the credibility of being a professional. You might bump out like the Lyft operator to house sit a $4 million third home.
Right.
I didn't work through the math on that back in the day.
The challenge with that though, and I saw every possible scenario because I owned a property management company in Jackson, Wyoming for 6 years and saw like every possible living situation that people were doing. The problem is there is no housing security. There isn't any security in that life. That's right. That's the challenge. It's just not a long-term solution. It's like, oh, take care of it for a year, take care of it for 2 years. And then these people were all just getting bumped out. Right. Something changes and like, oh, our sister-in-law is going to move in and we can't have you anymore. And then all of a sudden you're camping.
Right.
Plus, you like camping.
Plus you have no appreciation because you haven't been paying for anything.
Right. You haven't invested anything. So you have no equity. You have no, all of that. So, yeah.
Were second residents like that getting paid? I mean, a house sitter getting paid, or were they just getting free housing?
They were getting free housing and usually like a stipend, but it was very, very small. I had a good friend in Jackson who was caretaking a home on the Teton Village Road, like right out towards the resort. And it was it was a big estate. It was like 5 acres or something. And he was caretaking it, doing all the landscaping and stuff. And I think he was living there like in the guest house for free. And then I think they were giving him like $500 a month or something. Yeah. But it wasn't, and the same thing happened to him. He did it for like 2 years, and then they said, "Oh, we have this other friend, or we have this family member wants to be there for 6 months. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to move out." And then you're immediately injected into this rental market that is like, it's something to behold. Literally, the ads in Jackson are not like rentals for rent. The ads in Jackson are people putting ads out. I need a place. And it's like, and then this craziness ensues. And it's really on, it's funny for a while, but then it's kind of sad because I was seeing like families get displaced, that had been renting for 10 years and they have like 3 and 4 kids and they're getting moved out. Right. But
meanwhile, those are the people who are serving the people who own the places.
Oh yeah. They're critical care they're like nurses, police officers, firefighters, People that are doing like core services in town, all these people that are like essential, they can't run the town without them. So yeah, it's really something.
Awesome. Well, hey, we have hit our 15-minute mark. And when we designed this recap, the Real Estate Workout Recap, for those of you who are just tuning in, Real Estate Workout is a room on Clubhouse within the Libertas Real Estate Coaching Group, where we just encourage people to if they're going to get on Clubhouse, if they're going to learn about real estate, if they're going to learn about tips and tricks from best top producing realtors in the country and coaches in the country, like get out and move, right? Get on your Peloton, get outside and walk, enjoy some fresh air, burn some calories, learn while you burn, flex your mind and body. And so we're trying to just then, because Clubhouse is not recorded, we're going to flip here to Facebook, YouTube, a bunch of other places, podcast it out on iTunes, recap a little bit about what we learned, because Clubhouse is never recorded. So it's a lot of lost knowledge, but we're going to keep this to like 15 minutes because people have stuff to do. Nobody has time for an hour long anymore. So until Monday, and Lee, what are we doing today? Like 7:15 Pacific every Monday, Wednesday,
Yep.
every Monday through Friday, 7:15 Pacific for about a half an hour in Clubhouse. And then we'll do a recap here live on YouTube and Facebook. But until Monday, you guys have a great weekend. Lee, thanks so much for coming on. We could talk.
Definitely.
You know what?
Thanks for
we're
having
going to, because we're going to do it 15 minutes at a time.
Awesome, man.
Good having you on. Talk to you soon.
Definitely. See you soon.